Everfree Guardian, Chapter 6, Part 3. In another part of the cave, several armored diamond dogs were patrolling the tunnels, going up and down on lifts attached to pulley devices to reach the various floors and levels of the numerous caves that were strewn about many central points. Nathan Schmidt had managed to fall into the layer of tunnels closest to the surface, sliding through the vertical entrance until he reached the mine shafts that lied below. Looking around and venturing further, he didn't start coming across the beings that took Rarity until he had reached the 4th level down. Peering around the corner, he found one of the armored dogs facing away from him. Sneaking up on him, Nate rose the hunting knife to his neck and plunged it straight through, piercing the bone and slicing through the flesh with ease. Tearing it out to the side, he watched as the body collapsed into a crevice, remaining unseen unless intentionally sought out by the other dogs. Moving on, Nate took a spear as he found himself at another corner leading down into the 5th level of the system. Peeking around the corner, he leaned back to avoid detection, prepping the spear in his hand. Jumping out from behind it, he launched the spear at the next armored dog, jamming it through his chest plate and into his lungs. Nate let him fester and die, suffocating on his own blood as he moved on, taking one of the pulleys down to the 5th floor of the cave. Seeing 2 more dogs up ahead, he took cover behind some of the rock formation on the side, waiting for them to come closer. When one was on the pulley, he stepped out and stabbed his blade into the second dog's face, killing him instantly as he then strode forward and slit the throat of the other. Both went down without a fight, though they did spray the young man with their fluids. I'm gonna have to dry clean this again. Maybe need more lemon to get the blood out. He shrugged to himself as he stopped in front of the pulley, looking down over the edges it sat upon. This strand of cave seemed to go on for a few miles down, at least 12 floors from this perspective alone. Getting to Rarity will take forever, and he may not even make it before something horrible happens to her. Still though, he's gotta keep moving. Rarity gave out a hoarse breath as her magic diminished. The last hour and a half was spent casting the same spell over and over again, exhausting her reserves bit by bit. Granted, the gem finding spell didn't take much to cast, nor did it drain a pony all that much. However, using this one single magic's purpose endlessly wore her down. Her ragged breathing caught the ear of the leading diamond dog, who grinned when seeing her in such a tired state.
Oh? What's wrong, Pony? Are you wearing out your use to us?
The white unicorn looked up from the stalk, gulping as she cast the magic spell once more. The diamond dog crossed his arms, humming as he was denied his chance to indulge himself.
Stupid ponies and their resilience. Even the softest of them are difficult to break.
The group rounded another tunnel, digging out all the gems in the area and making their way towards the central chamber that connects all of these tunnels. When they entered, Rarity was impressed by the size of the place, how intricate and complicated it seemed. From every level, there were about 6 or 7 tunnels running out in separate directions, all single and none connected together. She wondered how the dogs could navigate such a place, but didn't have any time to ask, and she was forced to cast the spell again, this time with difficulty. With the diamond dogs preoccupied, she attempted to break the lock using a simpler spell. With her aura surrounding the lock, she jiggled at it, sliding a few strands of that hue into the inner mechanism. Fidgeting with it, she could feel one of the pins pull back. But she didn't get much further than that before the leader slammed his paw against her ass, her cutie mark now having a paw print over it.
What do you think you're doing, little pony? I was just...
Rarity panicked as she watched him go behind her, not wasting any time with tormenting or foreplay. It was clear what his intentions were, and she began to writhe and struggle when feeling his paws roam her thighs.
Attempting to escape, you are. Oh, just the kind of excuse I needed.
No!
The leader drooled as he prepared himself, getting behind Rarity directly and readying her for a little pony ride. Smirking, he lined himself up and... The diamond dog's ears flicked as he turned to the side, seeing...
What?
The group turned their eyes upwards as another corpse was thrown from an upper level, crashing down onto the rocks and smashing into the ground in a wet pile of meat. Running across the side of the upper floor that body came from, a non-pony figure was rushing the armored elites of the diamond dogs, using tactics and maneuvers unfamiliar to them to either beat them to death or run them through with an enlarged knife. Rarity gasped when seeing it, recognizing the hoodie immediately.
Nate, darling, down here, help me!
The leader spun his attention back to the mariner's hold, then looked back up at the figure. No longer fighting or running, the unnatural shape of the creature was now looming over the edge, staring directly at the group that had Rarity captured and escorted around the caverns. The leader didn't really know what instilled fear into him. Nothing about this creature appeared more frightening or threatening than the dogs themselves posed to others, but something about him, the way he moved, the way that he was looking down onto them, Even the air around him smelled evil. Nate dashed around the side of the path in the central chamber the second he found Rarity at the bottom. His feet ground against the dirt as he pedaled to another pulley, jumping into the lift and lowering himself down with haste. Passing by with each level had a few dogs come jumping onto the lift with him, but with his mind set on getting to Rarity, he wasn't keen on being delayed. If they got away, Rarity was lost forever, and who knows what they'll do to her both in and out of that breeding stock.
Now, why do so many creatures want to molest these ponies?
He paused for a second after ramming his knife into an armored dog's face, thinking back and remembering what their bodies looked like. Their voluptuous curves, their huge assets, their limitless potential and strength.
Okay, actually I can see why they're made a target.
Shaking his head, Nate jumped off onto the level above the ground floor, tackling one of the lesser diamond dogs off the side and using him as a means to break his fall. Crushing his neck against the cart hauling gems, Nate turned his irate gaze towards the group of dogs retreating into another tunnel with Rarity. Chasing after them with a pace rivaling their own on all fours, he managed to stay on them throughout the chase, using rocks sticking up from the ground to quickly turn corners when they try to bait and switch him. Coming to a decline, he slid down the rest of the way, and he had a clear shot to Rarity. Raising his knife, he prepared himself to lunge at the first dog that he can get his hands on. Hearing the sounds of chains being ruptured from above, he stopped, jumping back as a large wooden gate came down between him and the group of diamond dogs. The latter of which stopped, the leader turning back and laughing when seeing that he had managed to get away.
Haha, slowpoke! Too bad for you. If it is pony that you want, then you should have come sooner. Or run faster.
He laughed again as he pointed to the wooden bars that separated them.
That gate is made out of wood from the glowing bark trees of the Everfree. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to get through them.
Nate looked at the gate as the dog continued to laugh, turning Rarity around to look at him. Clasping her by her cheeks, the leader gave a firm, sloppy lick up the side of her face.
Say bye-bye to pony creature. It will be the last time that you'll ever...
The leader jumped as a piece of wood went flying past his face. His eyes widened as Nate's hand was now on the other side of the obstruction in his way. Taking his hand out, he reeled it back and violently smashed his way through another bar. The diamond dogs were all growing near pale with fear, the leader especially.
Impossible! That wood is made from growing bark! It is said to be strong enough to survive the spears of Candlelit Royal Guards! No one is that strong! No one!
Nate's fist went through another, blood oozing through his glove as he grasped the piece of the gate that he was smashing through. With a stressful jerk, he tore the flimsy board away, throwing it backwards as he ran in at the leader.
No! Stay back! Don't come any close!
Rarity closed her eyes as Nate was upon the diamond dog in an instant. She couldn't see what was happening, but she could hear it clear as day, and what she did hear made her ears fold back. Nate was practically beating the alpha of these mutts without remorse or mercy. Every fist swung at the anthropomorphic dog was followed by another. The moment you were hit by one fist, the next was already connecting. First, Nate had punched him in the temple to confuse him, then followed with a sequence of various punches in this order. A lead uppercut, a haymaker, a 2-3-2, a cross, a jab, a rear hook, a rear uppercut, a lead hook, an elbow, a back fist, an overhand, a hammer fist, and finally, a Superman punch. All of this added up to 15 hits that Alpha Diamond Dog took to the face. With the strength to bash through growing bark, Nate's arms were now covered in the leader's blood as that 15th punch delivered the final blow. Left without a face, the body fell to the ground, twitching and festering as the other diamond dogs were shrinking away in fear of this monster of a man. They've seen ponies who can fight back, withhold, and exert a surprising amount of strength, but never before had they used it to do what this creature had done. It went to show that Nathan Schmidt may not be as strong as an earth pony, or as intelligent as a unicorn, but if there was one thing that he was that no pony in Equestria could be, it was violent. Turning his head to the other mutts, they all attempted to get past him, hoping to escape the wrath of this demon. The caves were only filled with their screams as they were all horrifically murdered, just as their boss was.
Darling, please stop fidgeting.
Rarity glanced up at the human as the two were back in the Carousel Boutique. Having ruthlessly dispatched all of the diamond dogs in that cave, Nate had managed to free Rarity and escape the tunnels with her. They had quickly made their way back to the perimeter of Ponyville, the safety of its population warding any stragglers from attacking them further. Neither were injured by the dogs, but they also didn't want to go through any more funny business with them. Nate was already disgusted with the amount of grime that coated his arms before, and Rarity was still shaken up from being very nearly raped by one of them. Getting back to the boutique was a priority, and Rarity patching up Nate's fist was a close second, and getting him new clothes was a definite third. Now, here they were, back to square one. They had no gems, no progress, their only known source was teeming with dangers that didn't even know was there. And what pissed Nate off the worst about the situation was the fact that he lost one of his guns. His favorite pistol was somewhere buried in those tunnels. He wanted to get it back, but thought it was foolish to return there. If anything, the only reason that he'd ever go back to those tunnels would be to plug them so no pony else would be able to stumble across the massacre, or get captured the same way Rarity did. God forbid they didn't have the fashionista's talents if that ever did happen. Oddly enough, Rarity didn't seem bothered that they didn't have her gems. The whole walk home was her mainly getting over the peril that she was in before Nate came to her rescue. Not once did she complain or whine about not having what she needed. Instead, she sat him down and practically forced him to take off the glove as she went and got a first aid kit from her bathroom. While surprised at his lack of fur, she didn't say anything about it. She sat him down and took a seat next to him, pulling out the splinters from the growing bark with her tweezers piece by piece. A few times he jerked away in pain, resulting in the disapproval and annoyance of the fashionista. With this being the 4th time, Nate sighed as he gave her back his hand. Sorry.
It's alright, darling. The quicker we get this out, the better you'll feel in just a few moments. Now, hold still.
Nate looked away as she went back to work, her fingers holding his palm as her thumb brushed against the back of his hand. He had to admit, despite them looking as if their colors were mere skin, he couldn't fathom feeling their soft fur. It was short, but luscious in a sense. It was comforting to touch, and in some situations with Fluttershy, it was nice to cuddle with. They were like living, breathing blankets. Still, thoughts aside, he was sure Rarity had some apprehension of being around him. Nate had demonstrated just how unforgiving he can be to others if pushed. Hell, he completely mauled an entire squad of diamond dogs right in front of her. And with such ferocity, that would scar Fluttershy and actually frighten the iron-willed Applejack. But how was she so calm? Are you not gonna say anything? Rarity glanced up at him as the hood was facing forward, his eyes not focused on her.
About what happened back in that cave, you mean?
Nate nodded. Hearing her sigh, he turned his head further from her.
I will be frank with you, darling. That display was indeed disturbing. I've never met some pony who could do something like that without hesitation or a lack of self-control.
She prodded out another splinter, taking it with her tweezers as she continued.
The way you move, the way you fought, the way you killed.
She shook her head as she got the last of the wood out, putting the tweezers aside and grabbing a roll of gauze.
It doesn't matter now, darling. What matters is that we're safe. You saved the both of us, even if it was scary, and...
She cringed at the red on his arms.
Messy. It does not mean that I am not grateful, and can look past what I saw to see the bigger picture.
She wrapped up his hand as a smile graced her lips.
You know, Fluttershy and Applejack have spoken quite a lot about you. They had both told all of us of an unstable friend who just wants to help the ponies around them. He was someone who always tried to do the right thing, and sometimes to do the right thing, words simply won't do. Even a lady such as myself can understand when a pony or creature needs to be taught a lesson.
She turned back up to Nate as she clipped the gauze together.
Though, I won't sugarcoat this to you, murder, and especially homicide to an extreme degree like what just happened in those caves, is a heinous crime in Equestria. This kingdom prides itself as a moniker for peace, despite the few legends and ponies in the past that have tried to rule and take over this land. Equestria is meant to be a safe place of harmony. Crimes like killing is punishable by...
She fell silent as Nate got the message, looking back at her with a solemn glint in his eyes. Seems like now he has one more reason to stay out of the public eye. He doesn't know any other way to defend something or someone without killing something, and besides, if someone threatens your life, don't you have a right to defend yourself? Nate had seen crime back on his world in its sickest and most deplorable form. Murder, here or there, is one of the most tame crimes he has grown accustomed to seeing. What he saw upon the Everfree mountain and what was about to happen to Rarity, that always triggered a reaction from him, and never a good one. Staying silent, Rarity stood up with the human, the latter taking his glove back as he faced her. Well, in any case, I'm sorry that we couldn't get anything for your work.
Think nothing of it, darling. Getting out of that situation was more important than gathering enough jewels for our project. I'm just lucky enough to be alive.
She turned and walked towards one of her desks.
I can always find another spot and search for gems. I may even bring Spike along this time to help dig for them. He's just as good at finding jewels as I am.
She looked over her shoulder at him.
You should return home, dear, and perhaps take a shower.
Nate blinked before looking down at himself. His nose was assaulted by the smell of the oozing blood that trickled down his hoodie. Cringing and brushing off some of it onto his glove, he groaned to himself as he nodded. Yeah, I should. Will you be okay here on your own if I leave, though?
Of course, I may be a lady, but I can get myself out of certain circumstances.
She shooed him along.
Off you go, darling. Don't worry about me. It's late anyways, and every pony will be asleep within the hour. Be careful on your way back home.
Rarity turned back to her desk, no longer paying any attention to Nate as he stood there, watching her for a moment. Slipping the glove over his gauzed hand, he turned and strode for the door, leaving the boutique and treading out onto the dirt road of Ponyville. Glancing at the shop as he left it behind, he took a breath as he began to make his way back to the Everfree forest. As he walked along, he occasionally peered out towards the tunnel entrances leading into the caves he fought the diamond dogs in. He hated leaving work unfinished, and his pistol was still down there. With Rarity's work schedule crammed as it was, she couldn't go out on a second day to find gemstones. She needed them now. With a grunt, Nate continued forward, figuring that he'd return in the morning to scavenge those carts on the bottom floor of the system for the jewels those mutts had stockpiled. But for now, he was tired, and his hand hurt. It's best to leave it be until the morning. Lord knows what tomorrow would bring. That was a very interesting adventure in comparison to what actually happened in the show. You have a bunch of dogs who got yelled at a lot and they just surrendered versus a whole bunch of them dying. Sunny Starscout would be proud, I bet. Anywho, let's get on to our cool donators. Top donators are 630, J Tinman, Darkside, Only One Thing, Dash of Evergreen, and Ceru Orion. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, Stu Hex, Sword Brother and Mordred, Omicron Library, Will, Chris Twinkie, Hadzaza, Riot Soul, Iron Sky, Badass Waffle, and many more irresistible people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.